fistfight facing Congress when lawmakers return in September will be over money. There's a host of issues facing lawmakers that will likely expose many political fissures. Among them, when they return in September, will be offering federal funding to Texas after devastating storms hit the Lone Star State in late August. That could prove to be a political pickle for the Republican members of the Texas delegation, 23 of whom voted against emergency relief funds for victims of Superstorm Sandy in 2012. All but 3 of those members are still sitting in Congress.
They are going to get started first week back by digging into the appropriations process, finishing where they left before the August recess. Before August, they passed a 4-bill minibus that focused on defense and national security related appropriations. Coming back, they're going to finish the other 8 remaining bills, including domestic programs and some additional homeland programs as well. The House is looking to use this omnibus measure as their negotiating position with the Senate headed into these funding negotiations for the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. The House bill is not expected to become law. It includes a lot of partisan riders that Democrats won't support and therefore can't get through the Senate. So this is just an opening bid. But it was important to House members that they get to vote on all 12 bills from a partisan standpoint in terms of what their policy priorities were. Then things get a little more tricky on the appropriations process headed toward the fiscal deadline. Paul Ryan has already said here over the August break that he's expecting a short-term continuing resolution will be needed before September 30th to buy them additional few weeks, few months. He didn't specify how long, but we're guessing until December to finish those negotiations with the Senate on an omnibus measure.
Another funding issue that will be facing Congress is whether or not it will include more funding for a proposed border wall along the U.S. and Mexico border. President Donald Trump has threatened to shut down the government if he doesn't get his way over that money, but that might prove complicated, especially when Congress is looking to offer money to disaster efforts, given that those efforts are led by a federal agency that would be subject to a shutdown.
Another big issue is the debt ceiling. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said that Congress needs to raise that by September 29th, or the Treasury might not be able to continue paying off its debt. The House is divided on how they should handle this issue. Democrats have always said they would want a clean debt ceiling increase free of partisan riders. House Republicans, for the most part, at least 2/3 of the conference, I would say, believe that any debt ceiling increase should be paired with deficit reduction measures, whether it's to cut spending or prioritize debt payments so that they're not adding on to the debt and making the problem worse. They understand you need to pay the bills, but if you're going to continually raise the ceiling, you got to start paying off and cutting spending and changing your spending habits. The House still has to pass a budget resolution. They would like to get that done because they need a budget resolution to set up the reconciliation process. This is just kind of a procedural tool that allows the Republicans to avoid the filibuster in the Senate in passing legislation. They do want to get started on the tax code overhaul. They'd like to get a bill out, ideally sometime within the next month and a half, and get to markups. The White House has outlined a more ambitious timeline, saying they'd like to start markups in September and get a bill to the floor by October in the House.
The future of an investigation being led by Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller might be in jeopardy if Congressman Ron DeSantis' amendment ever sees the light of day. The Florida Republican is offering an amendment to the government spending package that would halt money for that investigation after 6 months if the amendment passes. Now, there's no guarantee that this amendment will ever make it to the House floor, but DeSantis' amendment is out there. At the same time, House Democrats are also offering amendments to do the opposite in protecting Mueller and the investigation.